Last Jedi plot holes are not plot holes. Now that being said, there are things I really don't like about this movie, or one or two things I really don't like about this movie, but I absolutely love this movie for the most part, and it breaks my heart to see so many people not liking it. Now, it's fine to not like plot points and things like that. Everyone has their own opinion, right? But I think there are certain things that people are calling plot holes that just aren't plot holes. So I thought I would address these, and some are gonna be pretty long-winded, at least for addressing a plot hole, and some more will just be quick. So let's get straight into this. How did the Dreadnought not have shields, or how were they able to bomb the Dreadnought so easily? So there are many things that I think allows this to be possible while having the little frigate that they had be protected by its own shields. So, number one, the fact that they were so close to the Dreadnought, I think, is a prime factor, because this leaves the alleviation that they could be inside the shield already. Obviously, there is no confirmation of that, but thinking of the Dreadnought's size and thinking of how the shields operate in Star Wars in general, they could be inside that shield, at least in these new Star Wars movies. Without that, even if that is wrong, even if they aren't in the shields, think back to the Clone Wars TV series, them rolling the thermal detonators into the droideka's shields. Now the same thing could be present here, while lasers will bounce off of a shield. The solid objects that are the bombs that get dropped on the Dreadnought will slip through, especially in space, where it is a vacuum. And sure, Star Wars doesn't depict space completely correctly, considering you can hear sound in space and a lot of other things that happen that disregard science when it comes to space in Star Wars. But the fact that they are solid objects and not lasers is a big factor here, in the fact that they can go through the shield. And a lot of people also said, how could those bombs destroy the Dreadnought? If you noticed, they had to get to a certain point before they could drop those bombs. It didn't matter if it was just on the Dreadnought. It was a power core that they were trying to get to and dropping the bombs on. So, A, the fact that it was solid objects, not like ion torpedoes or something, really makes a big difference here. The fact that they could already be inside the shield, considering the size of the Dreadnought, and also the fact that they were right at the power core. That last bomber that got through was right at the power core, and that is how they destroyed the Dreadnought. And again, a Dreadnought is meant to have massive cannons, right? There's some trade-off to that. The fact that it has massive guns means it's gonna have to sacrifice a bit in the shields, or in the defenses in general. Like the little frigate that the Resistance has, right, only has such strong shields, in my opinion, because it doesn't focus much at all on the gun side of things, on the offensive side of things. And if you pay attention in the movie, they make sure that all their shield power is diverted to the angular shields, right? So that really, to me, explains that whole shindig, that whole plot hole not being a plot hole, in my opinion. Now, you might get someone who could explain that one better than me, but I think those points still stand. The next big one I think people had a problem with was Snoke. And how did he not notice, you know, the blade turn, or rather the lightsaber turning around to turn on and slice him in half? Now, for me, watching this movie a second time, Snoke is describing a blade turning, but he's like, a blade turns or moves and goes to strike, you know, Rey. So the way he said it to me, and obviously I'm heavily paraphrasing here, but the way he said it to me in the movie made it very clear to me, while his eyes were closed, what he thought was going on, what he thought he was sensing, was Kylo turning, or, you know, getting his saber ready to stab freaking Rey. But what actually was happening was the saber was turning to turn on and kill Snoke. Now, here's the thing. I think the reason why Snoke misinterpreted it was because A, the motions are very similar, and B, because Kylo was still tapping into the dark side to kill Snoke. So Snoke was like, okay, dark side, lightsaber turning and moving and ready to do the kill. This must mean it's Kylo about to kill Rey. But no, it was Kylo killing Snoke, and Snoke's arrogance was his downfall. Snoke basically sucking his own penis was his downfall. So that plot hole out of the way. The next thing, how did Rey get off, Snoke's big Star Destroyer thing? A lot of people like, how the hell did she get off there? And, I think that's just, you need to listen to the movie, because what does Huck say? She took Snoke's emergency shuttle, or whatever it was. It was an emergency something that flew, an emergency ship, an emergency shuttle, whatever. But point is, she took Snoke's emergency ship, and that's how she got off. Simple as that. So how is Rey so good with a lightsaber? I really don't think she is. Now, on the raw power aspect side of things, she has amazing raw power lifting those rocks Jedi Knight level, and so does Kylo Ren. It was very clear in the movie that they showed that they are almost equal because of the raw power aspect, but I don't think either of them are very proficient in lightsaber combat. They are both good, admirable, but I wouldn't say they're as OP as people are trying to label it as. The main reason for this is you see them fighting Praetorian Guards. From what I remember, 5 for Kylo, 5 for Rey. And Praetorian Guards aren't force sensitive from what we know. And the fact that they were able to grapple Rey and Kylo and almost killed them tells me that their lightsaber skills are Padawan level. That's all to be said about it. Padawan level, maybe bordering on Knight, but Padawan level. So they really aren't that powerful with lightsabers. They really aren't that proficient. And Rey really isn't that proficient either. She's just good. And the reason why people think she's so great with a lightsaber is only because there is no one else to show how she wasn't that proficient and how Kylo isn't that great. And I think what really showed that Kylo isn't that great is when Luke was just dodging everything Kylo threw at him, like pretty much just without a sweat. And I know it was a force projection, but he still had the muscle memory. He knew what to do, and he just breezed up everything Kylo had to throw at him, just like he would breeze up everything Rey had to throw at him. Knights of Ren discarded? This is one of the biggest things I heard people complaining about. How dare they discard the Knights of Ren? While they weren't present in this movie, I do think they haven't been discarded, because what did Luke say when he was recollecting what happened with Kylo? He said, Kylo slaughtered my students and left with others. So he left with other students of Luke, which could easily have been who became the Knights of Ren. And who knows, maybe these Knights of Ren are dead, whatever. But I think Ryan was very heavily hinting with Luke towards the fact that the Knights of Ren haven't been discarded by saying that Kylo left with some of Luke's students. I really think we will see some Knights of Ren stuff in Episode 9, whether it's explaining how they are dead or whether it's showing the actual Knights of Ren. That being said, I can totally understand people being annoyed that we didn't see much Knights of Ren, but I think people saying that they completely dropped the ball on it and that it's a plot hole that they don't exist is complete BS, because I think that the movie acknowledged that they do exist. So, on to the next one. I think this was also a big one for a lot of people. How will the Resistance survive with so little people? Now, there is a two-pronged approach to this that I would like to take. The first being, many distress calls were found but not actually replied to, so that implies that they could rally the people they needed if the people that they needed were convinced. So all they need is to convince these people. All they need is to get there and convince these people to lend their resources, right? And to that same end, that little kid who used the Force to bring the broom to him, right? And looked out at the stars as whatever went to hyperspace. He was hoping for more, and he was almost like, yes, I want to join the Resistance. That is why I think the Canto Bike thing, that I actually didn't like too much at first, has a purpose, right? I think the purpose of the Canto Bike thing is to show that with the Resistance's presence, with people like Finn and Rose, that it inspired something in that little kid, and that they could be inspiring an entire star system at this point after a while if they keep doing that sort of thing. And they have been doing that sort of thing probably off screen in Episode 7 and stuff. So I think that kid was meant to symbolize there are people that will rally to the cause. I mean, the Admiral that took over Leia also hinted this, you know, saying that there are the oppressed who will rally to the call of the resistance. It's just gonna take time and convincing, and that little boy, I think, is the spark of that and the hint of how they're going to resolve this issue in episode 9. That's another thing with the Canto Bight thing. A lot of people didn't like it. I actually kind of liked the world of Canto Bight. I liked what we got with it, the whole riding of the horse things. And a lot of people said that felt too much like a Harry Potter movie or something. But Star Wars has always been fantasy. You know, we have hints of that sort of thing in episode 2 even, with like the creatures and the one that Anakin rides, and in the Clone Wars TV series, there is definitely stuff like what we saw in episode 8. So I like Canto Bight, I just didn't like that it seemed like there was no point to it, but with that little boy, I think there is an enormous amount of a point to Canto Bight. My only real big gripe with this film at this point is Rose, and Rose saving Finn. Like, it was just, why would you do that, Rose? Although that being said, that's a character issue, and maybe that was on purpose. As for Leia, what I want to say about Leia is that I think because of her force sensitivity, that's how she was able to do it. And I know like lots of people like, she was flying. She wasn't, right? It's space. One force pull, there's no resistance in space, so one force pull is enough to just carry her through the whole way. She doesn't need to be force pulling continuously, so it's not going to take like frickin' even Padawan level to do what she did just there, you know? And I think the way they describe the Force in this movie really hints to the fact that the Force protected Leia and allowed Leia to do what she did. The Force protected her from the vacuum of space. That is honestly what I believe from what this movie portrayed about the Force in other scenes. Now, this movie is not perfect, but I think I have dispelled a lot of the plot holes that really aren't plot holes. That being said, that people will probably still disagree with me, but this maybe leaves more food for thought than the plot holes, you know. I think Rian Johnson did a great job with this movie, and I just felt very, very compelled to defend it. Now, this video may not have had as much comedy as my usual videos, but I guess that's just how it would go. And hell, I may be bringing out more videos about The Last Jedi because there's just so much discussed about this movie in the future, so stay tuned for that. And one thing I will say is watching this movie a second time really did give me clarity and gave me the ability to make these points that I've just made. Maybe not as clearly as I would like to, but this was a spur of the moment video. I made some very quick notes, and then I made the video without any script except for what the notes were. So yeah. But if you did enjoy this video, subscribe would be appreciated, hitting the notification bell, and especially in this video, commenting, telling me what you think. If you still disagree with me, we can debate it out in the comments. I really do not mind. But this has been the Randy Andy Show, and I hope to see you in the next video.